in that war unless I'm president. I'll get it done. I'll get it negotiated. I'll get out. We got to get out.
You would think enabling one war is tough, but the US is enabling two, Gaza and Ukraine. Kiev did not really have to lobby for US support. Joe Biden offered it voluntarily. But pretty soon that could change. President Zelensky is visiting the US right now, and he's about to face a challenge bigger than Russia: American domestic politics. He will meet Biden, Trump, and Harris on Thursday. He will share his victory plan with all of them. We've told you about this before. Zelensky's plan involves multiple stages and strategies like military packages, diplomatic summits, and security guarantees. He wants to end the war on his terms. Today, Zelensky spoke at the United Nations General Assembly. He criticized what he called half-hearted peace plans.
When some propose alternatives, half-hearted settlement plans, so-called sets of principles, it not only ignores the interests and suffering of Ukrainians, who are affected by the war the most. It not only ignores reality, but also gives Putin the political space to continue the war and pressure the world to bring more nations under control.
Maybe Biden and Harris will support Zelensky's plan, but the question is, will Donald Trump do it? He's campaigning on an anti-war platform, and he is not keen on supporting Ukraine. This week, he made that pretty clear. Trump called Zelensky the greatest salesman ever. He also promised to get the US out of Ukraine.
Zelensky comes to the United States, he walks away with $100 billion. I think he's the greatest salesman on earth. But we're stuck in that war unless I'm president. I'll get it done. I'll get it negotiated. I'll get out. We got to get out.
Trump isn't famous for clarity, but that's as clear as they come. He wants to stop military assistance to Ukraine. Now, let's assume that he actually does that. How would it shape the war? The US is the biggest military donor to Ukraine. They've given weapons worth $56 billion so far. Germany is second, and they have given just $11 billion, 56 versus 11. Britain is third with $10 billion. So the US leads by a long way. If that support ends, Kiev may lose the war against Russia. It's as simple as that. Yes, Europe could try to plug the gap, but Europe itself is dependent on American weapons. Around 55% of their arms imports, European arms imports, come from the US, which makes one thing obvious. A Trump presidency is bad news for Zelensky. So what's he doing about it? For starters, he's meeting US lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans, and the idea is pretty simple. If Donald Trump won't give him weapons, maybe the US Congress will. Secondly, he's wooing the global south, basically developing and underdeveloped countries. They've mostly stayed neutral in this war, but Zelensky is hoping to win them over. How? He plans to hold the next peace summit in the global south. If they back him, it would put pressure on Russia. After all, the global south is made up of more than 120 countries, which brings us to the third part of his plan: milking the Biden presidency. Joe Biden still has around 4 months left in office. In this time, he could send more weapons. In fact, a new shipment is set to be announced soon. It's worth $375 million. And what does it include? Cluster bombs, different types of rockets and armored vehicles. Now, the cluster bombs stand out because these are banned by 124 countries, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A single projectile contains smaller bomblets. When released, they scatter and explode. So the damage is often widespread and indiscriminate, which is why 124 nations have banned them, but not the US, Russia, or Ukraine. And talk about the hypocrisy. In 2022, some reports claimed that Russia was dropping cluster bombs on Ukraine. See how the White House criticized it.
There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians. If that's true, what is the next step of this administration, and is there a red line for how much violence will be tolerated against civilians in this manner that's illegal and potentially a war crime.
It would be. I don't have any confirmation of that. We have seen the reports. If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime.
When Russia does it, it's a potential war crime, but when the US does it, it's totally fine. And that sums up America's attitude. And honestly, we feel for Ukraine. One US president is sending them illegal weapons. That's how supportive he is. But the next one may end up sending them nothing. It's the definition of volatility, of unreliability. We get that different leaders have different policies, but surely there must be some continuity. If not, how are partners and allies supposed to function? How are they supposed to count on you? Well, perhaps they shouldn't. Perhaps that is the bigger lesson here. Don't depend on the US for your protection or safety. Sort it out yourself.